Let's get right into it. Number 10. The mouse cure. Back in ancient Egypt, they had a solution for toothaches that would make modern dentists faint. You'd go to the local healer complaining about your toothache, and they'd prescribe you a dead mouse. Instead of getting a root canal, you'd get a rodent shoved in your mouth. No cleaning, no preparation, just straight from the mousetrap to your face. And it wasn't just the Egyptians who were into this mouse madness. In Elizabethan England, they used mice to treat various ailments. People would walk around with dead mice as part of their treatment. These weren't just random people doing this. These were actual medical professionals of their time. They believed that you could transfer properties from one thing to another, and since mice were everywhere back then, it was like having a 24-hour pharmacy right in your walls. Got a headache at 3 a.m., just grab your trusty mousetrap and wait for your medicine to arrive. Your ancestors probably thought we'd be the crazy ones for letting someone drill holes in our blistering plaster teeth. Number 9. Blistering plaster. Going to the doctor with a cough, and instead of getting cough syrup, they slap a mixture of crushed beetles on your chest. These weren't just any beetles, they were blister beetles, specially chosen because they could turn your skin into a painful, bubbly mess. The goal was to create the biggest, nastiest blister possible. The bigger the blister, the better they thought it was working. This wasn't some back-alley quack medicine. This was proper professional health care. Rich people would brag about their blisters. You had to leave these plasters on until your skin bubbled up. And if you complained about the pain, they'd just say it meant the treatment was working. They used this for everything. Headaches, coughs, joint pain, you name it. Got the flu? Here's some beetle paste for your skin. Feeling sad? Nothing cheers you up like some intentional skin damage. People actually felt better after this. Not because it worked, but because when you're dealing with burning, blistered skin, you kind of forget about your original problem. It's like stubbing your toe to forget about your headache. Number 8. Snail slime. For warts. Your ancestor wakes up one day and notices a wart on their hand. Instead of going to the doctor, they head straight to their garden to catch some snails. They'd grab these slimy little guys and rub them directly on the wart. No cleaning, no preparation, just straight from the garden to your skin. After the snail finished its treatment, they had to impale it on a thorn bush. The belief was that as the snail slowly dried up and died, your wart would disappear too. Some people said it only worked during certain moon phases. Others insisted you had to use the snail in specific ways. Modern science shows snail slime actually contains helpful compounds. So your ancestors were accidentally right for all the wrong reasons. Now fancy skincare companies charge hundreds of dollars for snail mucus products. Your great-great-grandmother got the same treatment for free. Number 7. Electric eels in ancient Egyptian medicine. In ancient Egypt, instead of getting an aspirin for a headache, your doctor would prescribe you a live electric fish to the face. These weren't your average fish. They were electric catfish, nature's living tasers. Think of them as the world's first electrotherapy machines, except these ones had fins and could swim away. The treatment was straightforward. You'd catch an electric fish, slap it on the painful area, and wait for the shock. If you had arthritis, you got a fish for your knee. A migraine, a fish on your forehead. Depression, well, that called for a full-body fish treatment. These weren't gentle healers, either. We're talking about enough electricity to give you a serious jolt. Sometimes the fish would get too excited and shock everyone in the room. The doctors kept these swimming batteries in special tanks, like a living medicine cabinet. Imagine walking into a doctor's office and seeing a fish tank labeled emergency pain relief. The fascinating part is that it actually worked. Sometimes the shock would temporarily numb the pain area. They even had different sizes for different conditions. Small fish for headaches, big ones for back pain. It was like having different voltage settings, except the settings were alive. Number 6. Soot and sugar remedy for oral thrush. Today we use antifungal medication for white patches in the mouth, but our ancestors would head straight to the fireplace for medicine. They'd scrape soot off the chimney walls like they were mining for black gold. Then they'd mix it with sugar to make a paste. The soot wasn't even cleaned first. They'd take this black sticky mess and rub it all over their gums and tongue. When babies got thrush, Mothers would dip their fingers in the soot mixture and then stick those black fingers right into their baby's mouth. Some people would collect soot from specific types of wood, like they were connoisseurs of fireplace residue. The ironic part is that sugar actually makes thrush worse because the fungus feeds on it. So while they thought they were helping, they were basically feeding the infection. Number 5. Milk transfusions. In the 1800s, doctors had a wild solution for blood transfusions: cow's milk. These were respected doctors in fancy hospitals, thinking blood and milk were similar enough because they're both liquids. In 1854, during a cholera outbreak in Toronto, 2 doctors took 12 ounces of fresh milk and injected it straight into a patient's veins. That's like putting dairy creamer directly into your bloodstream instead of your coffee. They thought the fatty parts of milk would transform into white blood cells. Some doctors got really picky about their milk sources. Cow milk was for common folk. Goat milk was for the sophisticated patient. The first patient actually survived, which made them think they were on to something. The side effects were severe. Patients experienced intense chest pain, and their eyes would start twitching uncontrollably. This practice continued until the 1880s when they finally discovered saline solution. Number 4. Chloroform, as a routine painkiller. Back in the 1800s, if you had a toothache, your doctor might just knock you out with chloroform. They'd grab a cloth, pour some chloroform on it, and hold it over your face. No measuring, no monitoring equipment, just eyeballing how much knockout juice to use. Before chloroform, surgeons would just start cutting while you were wide awake. Your best pain management option was biting down on a stick and hoping you'd pass out from the shock. Nobody really knew how much chloroform was too much or too little, and you'd wake up mid-surgery screaming, "Too much," and you'd never wake up. The doctor would just shrug and list complications as the cause of death. Doctors loved using it during childbirth. Queen Victoria herself used it for the birth of her 8th child. Some religious folks thought women were supposed to feel pain during childbirth because of Eve's sin, but once the queen did it, being unconscious during labor became fashionable. Number 3. Ground feathers in bread. Imagine biting into your morning toast and finding a feather. That feather was ground up on purpose and mixed into your dough. These feathers contain something called ulcein, a protein that makes dough more stretchy and easier to work with. But feathers weren't even the weirdest ingredient they used. Sometimes they'd throw in pig bristles. Other times they'd use human hair. This wasn't some desperate poverty food either. The bakeries were especially proud of their special ingredient. Bakers would collect feathers from local butchers. They'd grind them up into a fine powder that looked like flour. Then they'd mix this feather dust right into their dough like it was any other ingredient. Today we use synthetic versions of these proteins. Number 2. Withholding water from sick children. Up until the 1960s, doctors ordered parents to deny water to their dying children. They believed giving water to a terminally ill child would cause them to drown from the inside out. Parents would sit beside their child's bed, listening to them beg for water, listening to them beg for just one sip, and they had to say no. Doctors claimed water would pull in the lungs and stomach, that it would make death slower and more painful. So instead, they prescribed something they called therapeutic dehydration. When you're severely dehydrated, your brain releases endorphins. You start hallucinating. Parents were told these hallucinations were actually angels preparing to take the child home. Mothers would dab their child's cracked lips with a damp cloth, just enough moisture to keep them from bleeding, not enough to actually help. The practice was especially common in tuberculosis wards where children could linger for weeks. It wasn't until the 1970s that studies proved this made everything worse, that dehydration actually increased suffering and sped up organ failure, meaning thousands of children died in unnecessary agony. Number 1. Public executions as community entertainment. Executions weren't just about justice, they were entertainment. People would pack their picnic baskets and head to the town square. Street vendors would be there selling snacks, drinks, and even souvenir programs with all the juicy details about the criminal's life. The rich folks would rent balconies for the best views. They'd bring their fancy wine and cheese, making it a proper day out. Sometimes they'd even bring dates to watch someone get hanged. The condemned person was expected to put on a good show. If they gave a dramatic speech about their crimes, the crowd would cheer. If they struggled or cried too much, people would boo. When the executioner would mess up and need multiple swings, the crowd would get angry. They'd start throwing things, basically demanding a refund. After the execution, people would rush to collect souvenirs, a piece of the rope, a bit of clothing, even some blood-soaked dirt. They believed these items had magical healing powers. Your great-great-grandmother might have had a necklace made from execution rope instead of pearls. The dedicated fans would follow the body to the public dissection afterward. First you watch them die, then you watch them get cut up in the name of science. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.